Hello and welcome. I am Shreya, content writer and social media associate at IC3 Institute. And today I'm joined by someone who has been the heart of partnerships in global education, Jim McLaughlin, Assistant Vice President, Community Development, Partnerships and Communications, IC3 Institute. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, Shreya. Great to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So, Jim, today we are talking about something that we believe can bring our global community even closer, the membership structure. At its core, it's about creating a consistent space for connection, collaboration, and shared purpose. Before we dive into this and what this looks like for the IC3 Institute, I would like you to unpack what IC3 membership structure is and why it is relevant.
Membership is belonging. That's really the core of what this means for the IC3 community. It's amazing over the years, and I think back to 2016, standing in the ballroom at the first annual IC3 conference and just taking all of this in. Since that time, so many people around the world have connected to this mission of counseling in every school. And, this term member has come up so many times, right? I'm an IC3 member. I'm teaching at the IC3 Institute. I've been at a regional forum. I've been to the conference. I'm volunteering on a committee. And this idea of belonging has always been there. So now what we're doing is actually bringing that to life in a very structured manner. So, to me, this means belonging for us, and to do this in a very intentional and structured way.
Okay. So now that we know what membership structure is and looking at where the IC3 Institute community is today, with so many years of navigating constant changes in education, why do you feel this is the right time to move toward a membership approach?
So we're just about ready to celebrate the 10th year of IC3, which is amazing to think about. And we think about this first decade of IC3, we do much more looking ahead than looking back. Of course, we have to ask the question of what more could we have done? We look at how we can learn, essentially. That's when I say when we look back. But most of our gaze is set to the future. So the timing is actually perfect, because higher education, secondary education as a whole is completely dynamic right now. Things are changing every second, every moment, from policy to geopolitics to AI, how we're interacting with each other, how teachers are interacting with students, and so on. We have to be evolving. So as we look at this next decade of IC3, membership and belonging in this community is going to be a huge part of that. I think this allows us to do a number of things. Firstly, we create a dedicated, intentional community, right? And we've had this since the start in many different facets. But one that could actually say, I am an IC3 Institute member. So that brings with it a lot of meaning. It brings that belonging. That's the first thing. The next, for me, is we need to advocate for counseling. One of the biggest motivations for me to first start volunteering and serving on committees back in 2016, what motivated me was that I saw how commercialized and industrialized this field was becoming. And I think it just hit me, what am I doing actually about this? What am I doing to ensure that we're actually keeping students at the center? And even though we've done incredible work together around the world, right, with the more than 1,600 volunteers that are serving in committees and teaching at the Institute and doing all of these great things, global education has actually become more commoditized, more industrialized, more commercialized. we actually need to structure much more intentionally to get to where we need to be, with purpose at the core, with students at the center, not students as commodities, but students as individuals, as human beings, looking at what this purpose and direction in their lives really can be. So this allows us to advocate for counseling, right? That's really the message here. This allows us to really build this community. We can see who this community is. We know others that are having that shared commitment to the values that we espouse. So the timing, I think, is perfect. It's needed. And it's going to take us into the next decade of IC3 and counseling in every school.
Moving on, Jim, as you are speaking, I'm thinking about the moments that have really defined our journey so far. Those times when you were around the room, whether you were at the annual IC3 conference and expo, or at residential weeks, or even in online sessions. We just feel that everyone here is for some reason, for some purpose. And then it's just not about the space you are in. It's about the people who are you with in that moment. So can you remember a moment in the IC3 Institute when you felt at that deep sense of we are in this together, a moment that reminded you of something, that you're being part of something bigger than ourselves?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I'm sort of being flooded with moments and memory. I think they probably happen every day, and you don't always recognize them when they do. But, for me, if I can maybe highlight a couple of these, every graduation, every IC3 Institute graduation is that moment for me, where you have a senior school principal, a teacher, an administrator, a counselor who has it on a cap and gown. They've dedicated 350 plus hours over 1 year. They're going, home, sacrificing time with family. They're, spend all day on campus or in school, in the office, and they're going, either early in the morning, late at night, to continue to learn, to continue to sit in, what Ganesh would call the chair that says, I want to know, or I don't know. That, to me, you see the caps and gowns, you see the caps go up into the air, and you see that pride, that jubilation. And the moment for me, though, is when the oath is read, that commitment that they make, and it's almost like, you have that, shared, and it's audibly read. Everybody is stating this verbally, that we believe in what we're doing. We believe in students. Being a counselor is every bit as important. Being a teacher is every bit as important as being a doctor, being an engineer, you name the profession. It's those people who create the doctor. It's those people who create the engineer. So graduation is definitely a moment for me. Even virtually, when we do graduations, it's the dance party, right? It's the virtual dance party that we have, and nobody can have a virtual dance party like IC3, or an in-person dance party like IC3 for that matter. But I'll share, one other thing that's coming to mind, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
There are some really poignant moments where you have to stop. The weight of the moment is, it just hits you. And sometimes it's in a really, oh my gosh, we've come a long way. And then you also have those moments that reminds you that we really have a lot further to go. And this next one is really one of those moments. And I was having a conversation with a very senior school educator, who I won't name, but someone that has dedicated her life to education, and we're having these conversations around what does it mean to be a teacher, what does it mean to be a counselor, and she looked at me and said, Jim, in this country, in this community, being a teacher is a fallback. It's, oh, you failed as an engineer. It's okay. You can just go be a counselor or a teacher. And she said it with such, you could see the, pain isn't the right word, but just this acknowledgement, this almost determination that how can this be? How can this be that someone so important in a young person's life, a teacher, a counselor, is actually viewed this way? And I think that is the case in not just that community, but in many, many parts of the world. That somehow, this profession that is one of the oldest professions in the world, in some parts of the world, it's extraordinarily respected, but not universally so. That how can this be? That this influence that this one individual can have. We all remember a teacher who had an influence on our lives, whether it was a very positive one or actually a traumatic one. So the power is there. Why do we not recognize that in our society? Why do we not recognize that systematically, globally? That was a real moment for me to say, great, we can pat ourselves on the back and say we've done great since 2016, and there are many more counselors around the world, and all of that is very true. You're seeing this reflect not just in individual schools, but also at national levels in some cases now. I like to think at some level, because of the collective work that we've done within, the IC3 movement, but that we're really, really still a long way to go. We have a lot of schools out there, most of them, I would say, still in every country, that do not have a structured system of guidance. That counseling, we say this year's theme is counseling as a culture. And that's in 2025, and in 2026, that theme will be looking deeply from information to insight, right? Looking deeply from information to insight. So we think about those themes. We've got to keep driving this home, double down on ethics, supporting each other, not competing with each other, going inward first before we look around and say, that's what I should be doing. No, we have to, go here and say, look within ourselves and see that. So those are two areas that really come to mind now. Thank you for the question.
I totally agree when you said that being a teacher is not a universally respected profession. I have witnessed it in my childhood as well. I would see people not acknowledging a teacher as much as they should. So I totally agree with the moments that you shared. Moving on, Jim, how do you imagine that membership structure is going to help us create more and more positive moments like the graduation ceremony and more often?
Well, we'll have a defined community. That's the first thing, right? Where we can, you can actually see. You can actually see the progress. You can actually see the growth. You can feel the community, right? The community will be able to connect very directly, right? Through the membership portal, the membership platform. It will actually allow significant opportunity for people to connect with one another. That's something that's really missing right now in the existing sort of structure, if you will, or lack of structure, perhaps. There's not a way that I can really right now see, where are my advocates in my own community? Where are the advocates for counseling in the United States? What about Nepal and India and Kenya and Cameroon and all of these places around the world? So that, I think, is a very tangible thing that we'll see. You'll be able to really feel that and identify who that, what does that community actually look like? So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. So Jim, now that we have laid the foundation for the membership structure, I would like you to delve a little deeper and walk us through who this is for and what different categories do we have to offer and how our audience will know that they belong to which category of the membership structure. So if you would like to throw some light on that.
Yeah, I think it's very clearly defined. IC3's mission is counseling in every school. So we start there. We always start there. How does our work and how does any action that we take actually advance counseling in schools? We want to see every young person inside of a school, in the classroom, in the lunchroom, on the sports field, on the court, wherever. We see that support and structured guidance for them. So we start with schools. IC3 is and always has been there for educators, right? So really what we're talking about is educators and those that are in the field of education, right? So membership will be based on individuals and essentially employees of schools, institutions of higher education, universities, colleges, and then education affiliated organizations. So in each of those categories, so take schools, for example, right? At any given school, there'll be a primary member and then an unlimited number of additional members that would be affiliated with a particular school. Same thing would be the case for a university. If I'm at McLaughlin University and I'm the primary member of the IC3 Institute representing McLaughlin University, then my teammates, right, my team members, they could be in multiple departments, they could be in admissions, enrollment management, student services, career development, wherever. There really won't be limits on that. We do want membership essentially to affiliate with school, an institution, an organization. We know that there are colleagues who've also retired, right, that are not necessarily affiliated with a particular organization or school or institution. Definitely want to give that opportunity for us to continue to learn from them, for retired professionals to be, continue to stay active in this community, contribute to that community. We can learn from each other. And then also we've over the years, graduate students, undergraduate students who have an interest in the field of counseling and education and international education have also expressed a desire to say, hey, how can I, get involved? And we really, until this time, have not had a way for people who are perhaps wanting to come into this field to become part of this community. So those are the way, that's really how the membership will be structured, the various categories. And we're looking forward to really building that community around those schools, around those institutions, around those organizations, really at the core.
Also, Jim, I believe being part of the IC3 Institute community comes with clear benefits, not only for your professional growth, but for the support you feel in your work. What specific benefits do you envision for IC3 Institute members?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the most, I think exciting aspects about becoming an IC3 Institute member is, have access to so many opportunities to connect, to learn, to develop. All IC3 Institute members will have access to the IC3 Institute Resource Library, which is just a treasure trove of documents, presentations, insights, sessions, learning sessions, archived content that they can really chew through on almost any topic you could probably imagine in this field, related to counseling, related to higher education, university admissions. All of these things are there. So the content is a big part of that. The connecting is, for me, one of the linchpins, right? So as an IC3 Institute member, I can actually go and browse and explore a membership directory in a particular country, right? Or look for a particular institution or school, connect with that person, right? Build relationships with them. So this is going to support so much of what we're trying to do across the world. We hear almost, probably not every day, but very often I'm having conversations with our colleagues in schools around the world to say, Jim, how are we, what advice do you have for us getting to know global universities. And the same conversation happens with the universities. How do we meet the schools, right? We've tried to connect with them. We've tried to reach out. We're not sure where to look. We really want to make sure those relationships are not just formed, but that they last. And that is where that connection will happen. So through the membership platform, there'll be engagement opportunities. There's direct communication that can happen amongst members within that platform. This is not something we've ever done. And in true IC3 fashion, we're just sort of going for it. We're launching this. We're going to learn a lot from each other. We'll take feedback, we'll refine, and we'll continue to get better and better, I think, day by day. For schools, probably the biggest benefit for those that are looking to continue to develop is they'll have access to apply to the IC3 Institute's no-cost training programs. So as an IC3 Institute member, I will now have the ability to apply for Empower, which is the flagship one-year certificate training program, for Embark, which is the foundation level training program, 20-30 hours, and Enrich, which is a training program, in-person training program for school leaders. So when I become an IC3 Institute member, I'll have exclusive ability to apply for those programs. And those programs will remain at no cost, and access and inclusion is a really core part of this, and will be. I mean, that's the heart of IC3. That's really who we are. So that's a highlight. There are many benefits that will come. There'll be continued learning sessions that will happen. Well-being, consciousness and well-being is a growing pillar within IC3. So that could look like periodic meditation sessions that we can come have access to together, really focus on developing as individuals, focus on our inner health as much as our physical and outer world. We want to really focus on the inner as well.
Thank you for answering that, Jim. Before we wrap this up, I would like to ask you if you could just fast forward some years from now. What would you hope an IC3 Institute member would say about the impact that this has had on them and their community?
I belong. I've made a difference. My children are happy. My neighbors' children are happy. My community is happy. That's what I would want them to say. Plain and simple.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And your aspiration is a reminder of what makes IC3 Institute special, a shared purpose that extends beyond individual goals. It's the spirit of unity, collaboration, and forward momentum that defines the IC3 Institute community. As we carry this vision forward, may we continue to strengthen the bonds that make us just not a network, but a force of meaningful change. Thank you so much, Sim.
Thank you, Shreya.